Welcome to the debate. You know, when scientists need to handle a highly volatile, potentially hazardous material, they don't just put on gloves and hope for the best.
Right.
They use a glove box. It is this sealed, transparent chamber where they can manipulate the material using heavy, built-in gloves from the outside. The material never actually touches them.
It never contaminates the room.
Exactly. There is a hard, physical boundary between the handler and the hazard.
And, it is incredibly slow. It restricts your range of motion. It requires intense meticulousness. And if you are just trying to build something simple, working through a glove box makes the entire process feel like you are walking underwater.
True, but you don't get poisoned. And that exact tension between absolute safety and practical utility is really at the heart of our discussion today. We are looking deeply into the living professional record system.
The LPR.
Yes, the LPR. For those less familiar, think of it as a highly verified, evidence-backed ledger of a person's entire career. It is not a resume, it is the raw truth underneath it.
The foundation.
Right. And today we're focusing on Module 7, which deals with how we govern artificial intelligence when interacting with this record. The module dictates that AI must act strictly as a translator, not an authority. To enforce that, it introduces a mechanism called the safe source packet.
Which is basically the ultimate conceptual glove box.
Exactly. Our focus today is on this specific mechanism. When we integrate AI into professional documentation, does the safe source packet act as a brilliant, necessary firewall that forces AI to stick to the facts?
Or does it create such a massive manual burden for the user that it simply highlights AI's fundamental limitations?
Right, that is the question. And to me, the safe source packet isn't a burden. It is a lifeline. It perfectly bounds the AI to factual, privacy-reviewed inputs.
And I have to push back hard on that framing. Conceptually, sure, it sounds great. But in reality, the sheer amount of manual extraction required to build a safe source packet renders the AI almost completely redundant.
Redundant?
Yes. And worse than that, I think it creates a false sense of security regarding an AI's inherent mechanical tendency to inflate claims.
Well, let's ground this in the actual mechanics so everyone knows exactly what this firewall looks like. The source material is very clear. Before using AI, you must prepare a safe source packet. You do not just open a prompt and start typing.
No, definitely not.
This packet contains only privacy-reviewed material that the AI is permitted to use. It might include a safe summary, evidence notes, a context brief, claim boundaries.
Privacy labels, ownership verbs.
Yes, specific claims to avoid, the target audience, and the rendering purpose.
Just a light reading list for the machine.
It is governed data. The absolute core rule is what you cannot include. It should not include raw, confidential, or sensitive material. You do not give the AI the internal corporate report.
Right.
You do not give it the private client file. And you absolutely never give AI the full living professional record. By giving the AI only governed safe source material, you strip away its ability to expose secrets or invent facts. You force it into the role of a linguistic translator.
So if you're listening to this and thinking, why on earth would I spend the time to define exact claim boundaries, select the ownership verbs, and meticulously list the claims to avoid before I even ask the AI for help? That is exactly my point.
But it's necessary governance.
Think about the reality of what you just described, though. If a human advisor does all of that prep work, the actual translation is basically finished.
I wouldn't say finished.
It is like hiring a wildly expensive ghostwriter, but only letting them see the table of contents of your life, and then handing them a list of words they aren't allowed to use.
But you are isolating the raw material to protect privacy. We know that if you paste a raw internal company report into a general AI tool, you risk a massive data leak.
Sure.
The safe source packet forces you to distill that confidential report into a safe summary before the AI ever sees it. You drop the risk of data exposure to absolute zero. You can't leak what you don't upload.
Yes. You eliminate the privacy risk by removing the raw data. But look at the cost to the actual output. When you remove all of that context, you are stripping away what we call operational texture.
The operational texture?
Yeah, that's the messy reality of the work. The specific department names, the weird internal politics the client navigated, the specific technical hurdles. If you abstract all of that away to protect privacy, You pretty much guarantee that the AI will output generic, meaningless buzzwords.
Well, the AI shouldn't output buzzwords if you provided a proper context brief within the packet.
But the context brief is, by definition, sanitized. The source material explicitly warns us about AI generic language. It warns us about the AI spitting back sentences like a results-driven professional with a proven ability to leverage cross-functional collaboration.
We've all seen those.
Right, and why does AI write like that? Because it doesn't have the operational texture. By sanitizing the internal report into a safe summary, you leave the AI with nothing but abstract nouns. You systematically starve the machine of the details it needs to produce anything that actually sounds human.
Okay, I hear you, but let's separate the details the machine wants from the structure the machine needs. The AI doesn't need proprietary client secrets to generate a human-believable rendering.
But it needs something.
It needs the structural mechanics of the work. That is what the human advisor provides in the evidence notes. Think of the safe source packet like a carefully drafted architectural blueprint. The AI is simply the contractor executing the build.
I mean, is it a blueprint or is it micromanagement to the point of absurdity?
It's necessary preparation. Preparing the packet is just claim mapping. Claim mapping, the hard work of actually matching what a professional did to a verifiable piece of evidence, is the fundamental duty of the advisor.
Right.
You have to capture evidence and map the claims before you translate them for a resume anyway.
Let's look at the specific onboarding checklist example provided in the curriculum because I think it highlights how absurd the micromanagement gets.
Okay.
A client creates a shared onboarding checklist for one team during a high turnover period. To safely put this into an AI prompt, the human advisor has to create a safe source packet that explicitly notes allowed verbs, created, coordinated review.
Yes, accurate verbs.
And then they have to write do not claim, company-wide transformation, reduced ramp time, HR strategy ownership. If you, the human, have already analyzed the evidence deeply enough to know the exact right verb is coordinated review, and you know exactly what the AI might lie about, the AI is no longer a helpful assistant, it's a liability.
Well, I'll admit, isolating it to a single sentence makes the prep work look heavy, but you have to separate analytical work from rendering work.
How so?
Identifying that the correct, truthful verb is coordinated as analytical work. That requires human judgment. But writing 3 different variations of a resume bullet that incorporate that verb for 3 different target audiences, say, one for a corporate recruiter, one for a technical manager, and one for a networking event, that is rendering work.
Right.
The AI handles the rendering.
But the human is doing 95% of the heavy lifting just to let the AI do the last 5%? If you already know the allowed verbs, the privacy boundaries, the context, and the claims to avoid, you could just write the sentence yourself in 30 seconds.
I mean, maybe one sentence.
You literally just write, created a shared onboarding checklist for one team, coordinating manager review. Why are we bringing a massive, unpredictable language model into the process just to string together words we've already handpicked?
Because of scale, and because of lateral translation. Could you write one sentence in 30 seconds? Yes. Could you instantly translate military logistics terminology into adjacent civilian project management terminology for 5 different industries while strictly adhering to the exact allowed verbs?
Well, no, of course not.
No. The AI provides massive scaling power, but it only does so safely when bounded by the packet.
So let's pull on that thread about safety, because the curriculum itself doesn't seem to trust the safe source packet to actually hold the line.
Wait, what makes you say that? The entire governance model relies on the packet to hold the line.
It relies on it conceptually, yes, but practically, the curriculum immediately introduces a massive safety net because it expects the packet to fail.
You're talking about the claim check?
Yes, let's talk about the AI output claim check. The source material dictates that after the AI produces its output, the human advisor must rigorously review every single generated sentence.
As they should.
They have to ask, did the AI invent anything? Did it inflate the ownership, the scope, the outcome, or the metric? If the safe source packet is such a brilliant firewall, why does the curriculum mandate an exhaustive sentence-by-sentence interrogation after the fact?
Because human review is mandatory in any high-stakes environment. AI is a translator, not an authority. The human is the authority. It's a defense in depth strategy.
I understand defense in depth, But if I give the AI a safe source packet that explicitly says, do not claim company-wide transformation, and then I have to immediately audit the output to make sure it didn't claim company-wide transformation, it means the system knows the AI will inevitably try to inflate the claim regardless of my instructions.
Well, the AI constantly wants to turn emerging claims into mature claims.
So for our listeners who might not be deep into the LPR terminology, let's clarify that real quick. An emerging claim is something you are just starting to do. Like, I helped build a spreadsheet for my department.
Right.
A mature claim is owning the entire process, like I designed the enterprise data strategy. And yes, I agree, AI tends to push the former into the latter. Exactly. It wants to use words like spearheaded, transformed, and orchestrated, even when the evidence only supports assisted. My point is, the safe source packet doesn't actually tame the AI. It just creates an illusion of control that the human has to painstakingly correct during the claim check.
We need to look at why the AI does that, though, because it explains why the safe source packet is so vital. Large language models don't have egos.
True.
They don't have a personal desire to lie or boast. They predict text based on statistical patterns in their training data. And what is the training data for professional writing? Millions and millions of unverified, highly inflated LinkedIn profiles and resumes.
The mathematical default of the internet is to boast.
Right. The statistical default for an AI generating a resume bullet is to inflate the verb, because historically, humans inflate their verbs. That is why the safe source packet is required. It explicitly interrupts the AI's default statistical pattern.
But does it?
By combining the packet with a highly constrained prompt, we are overriding the training data. We are saying, do not use your standard pattern. Only use the evidence provided here.
And yet, it still hallucinates. Which brings me to the administrative nightmare of the rejected AI claims log and the AI translation log.
They aren't nightmares, they're logs.
According to the curriculum, if the AI outputs spearheaded, and I reject it because my safe source packet said coordinated, I don't just fix the word. I have to log the date, the purpose, the prompt summary, the output summary, the claims accepted, the claims rejected, and the exact changes I made.
Yes, for provenance.
I have to log the rejection to prove I didn't accept the AI's hallucination as truth. That isn't just defense in death. That is a bureaucracy designed to catch a machine that is fundamentally unsuited for the task.
Okay, I'll admit, logging every single word the AI gets wrong sounds like an administrative nightmare at first glance, but you have to understand the specific problem the LPR is trying to solve here. Professional amnesia.
Professional amnesia?
Yes. Think about a client looking at their own career rendering 2 years from now. They need to know why they used a specific word. If their resume says they coordinated a project, they need to know that word was chosen because a human verified it against real evidence in their record, not just because an AI thought it sounded punchy.
So it's about trust.
Exactly. The logs preserve provenance. They prove that the human advisor actually governed the machine, rather than surrendering to its fluency.
Provenance is absolutely vital. I agree. But the sheer friction of this process, the logs, the packets, the claim checks, it forces a critical question.
Which is?
If a client built a simple practice dashboard in a training course, and the AI immediately tries to label them a data analytics professional with proven enterprise reporting expertise, the advisor has to catch that hallucination.
Right.
They have to reject it. They have to log the rejection. They have to rewrite it back to building data analytics capability. At what point do we admit that the AI is straining so hard against the leash that the human is just acting as a glorified babysitter for a text predictor?
The friction you are describing is entirely intentional, especially in the learning phase. The LPR Academy enforces a strict distinction between AI Assist LPR training mode and the record automated.
Meaning they make it intentionally hard during training so you understand the stakes?
Precisely. The manual process, the packet preparation, the rigorous claim check, the logging is required for certification because an advisor must fundamentally understand the mechanics of professional truth.
Right, the mechanics.
If you don't experience how much effort it takes to bind an AI to the truth in a single manually crafted sentence, you will blindly trust an automated enterprise system to do it for an entire career. You have to feel the friction to respect the firewall.
That makes sense for a training environment. I'll give you that. But it still rests on the premise that the AI's output is valuable enough to justify the friction. Earlier, you mentioned that the AI provides value by drafting options for different audiences.
Huge value.
But the source material itself warns us that AI can, make every client sound the same. It warns against erasing a professional's distinctive contribution. Even when restricted by a safe source packet, the AI's tendency to standardize language actively degrades what we call the human believable signal.
I'm really glad you brought up the signal types, actually, because the curriculum makes a vital distinction between a machine-readable signal and a human-believable signal.
Machine-readable meaning it has the exact keywords the HR algorithm or applicant tracking system is scanning for.
Exactly. AI is incredibly effective at identifying missing keywords, mapping common role terms, and structuring formats. It makes a rendering machine-readable so it can travel smoothly through automated hiring systems.
But structured enough to travel through an algorithm is only half the equation. The other half is specific enough for a human hiring manager to actually trust it.
Which is exactly why the record exists. The AI provides the machine-readable structure. The safe source packet injects the specific operational texture from the record.
If it's not sanitized away.
Right. And the AI output claim check ensures the AI didn't dilute that texture into generic, meaningless professionalism. You're looking at the safe source packet in isolation, pointing out that it fails if the AI still makes a mistake. I am looking at it as the foundational layer of a comprehensive governance system.
A system where the human does all the complex thinking. To make the packet precise enough to govern the AI, you must strip away everything that requires actual nuance.
You're protecting the client.
But you cannot give the AI the raw, messy reality of how a client navigated a sensitive compliance issue. You have to write a safe summary that says, supported coordination during a sensitive process review. You have to explicitly command the AI, do not imply ownership of the investigation.
Right.
You, the human, have already solved the puzzle. You navigated the complexity. And then you hand the AI a pre-solved puzzle, ask it to put the pieces together, and watch it like a hawk to make sure it doesn't jam a piece in the wrong spot.
That isn't a flaw in the system. That is the definition of appropriate use. The AI is a language assistant, not a career decider.
A formatter, really.
Solving the puzzle, figuring out exactly what the professional did, establishing the boundaries, applying the privacy limits, that is the irreplaceable value of the human advisor. We do not want AI interpreting raw confidential reality.
Then we need to stop treating it like a magical translator and call it what it is in this context, a formatter, a high-speed thesaurus. The curriculum states that advisors should treat AI as a tool to reduce jargon or suggest alternate phrasing.
Yes.
If we acknowledge that its utility is that narrow, then the massive apparatus of the safe source packet finally makes sense, not as a way to unleash AI's immense power, but as a heavily armored cage to tightly constrain a very basic text formatting tool so it doesn't accidentally hallucinate a lie.
It is much more than a basic formatting tool because it synthesizes those constrained parameters into fluent prose faster than a human ever could.
True.
You are completely right that it must be kept in that heavily armored cage. That is why every advisor candidate must physically demonstrate this exact workflow during their certification capstone. It isn't enough to theoretically know that AI inflates claims.
No, they have to do it.
The candidate must physically practice building the safe source packet, writing the prompt, and executing the claim check. They have to prove they will not surrender to the allure of AI fluency.
Which perfectly highlights the gap between this rigorous system and the reality of the market. The curriculum notes that most people use AI casually. A normal professional will literally copy and paste their entire raw, unprotected work history into a prompt and say, make me sound like an executive.
All the time.
The safe source packet is the exact opposite of how the rest of the world interacts with these tools.
And that is exactly why the LPR advisor is necessary. The market wants the polished surface instantly, with zero effort. The advisor's job is to stand in the way and say,
No, we cannot paste your full record into this tool. We must build a safe source packet first.
We must extract the evidence.
Yes, and apply privacy labels. The advisor exists to enforce the exact friction that the client desperately wants to skip.
Look, I don't disagree that friction is necessary when dealing with truth. My ultimate skepticism lies in whether this specific friction, 30 minutes of building a packet, 15 minutes of logging rejected claims, is the most effective way to operate, or if it is just an elaborate way of doing the writing yourself while pretending the machine is helping.
I think it comes down to a fundamental philosophical shift in how we view professional documentation. We are entering an era where generating a perfectly polished, highly fluent resume takes about 3 seconds. The cost of sounding qualified has dropped to absolute zero.
Fluency is cheap.
Exactly. Fluency is completely commoditized, which means the premium on verifiable truth has never been higher. The true value of a professional no longer lies in the linguistic polish of their words, but in the rigorous, governed evidence beneath them. The safe source packet forces the human to do the analytical work first, ensuring that AI is always kept firmly downstream of the truth.
It really does ask the listener to consider a highly practical question about their own workflow, How much preparation is truly required to make an AI's output trustworthy?
A lot.
If you find yourself spending more time correcting an AI's mathematically inevitable hallucinations than you would have spent just writing the document yourself, you have to stop and ask, who is really assisting whom?
There is clearly much more to unpack in the LPR Academy material regarding AI governance, especially when we get into the specifics of source-bound prompting. I encourage everyone to dive into the rest of Module 7 and weigh the balance of governance and utility for themselves.
It certainly challenges the narrative that AI is a magic bullet for professional writing.
Think back to that scientist working with the glove box. Those thick rubber gloves are undeniably cumbersome. They slow your process down. They make fine motor skills incredibly frustrating. But when you are handling a material that has the power to invisibly contaminate your professional integrity or expose your client's private data, you don't complain about the thickness of the gloves. You secure the seal, you operate strictly within the boundaries, and you never, ever let the hazard touch the raw material.